What's up, guys? So it's finally that time where I get to review Resident Evil 7. I have been building up to this for such a long time, and I finally beaten Resident Evil 7, and I want to talk about it really quickly. Now, to make this as spoiler free as possible, I will not be going into specifics of the plot of the game. I will not be talking about all of the boss fights in this game, and I will not show gameplay of the game except what's been made public already. I'm trying to keep this as spoiler free as possible so you can have a completely open mind jumping into Resident Evil 7 if you decide to buy it. What I will be talking about specifically in this review is 1. The gameplay, 2. Horror, and 3. Replayability. And finally, my last impressions and give my score. And should you buy this game now for $60, or should you wait until the game is like $30 or something? A lot of people feel like $60 is such a high stretch in gaming, so maybe you might want to wait until the end of this review to buy the game or not. But let's just get right into it. First, let's talk about the gameplay. Now, the gameplay is of course in first person, as we all already knew. However, it was very fun to play. The puzzles were great. I did struggle on a few of them, I'm not gonna lie. It took me a little bit to actually get through some of the puzzles. You actually had to, look at a doll or look at something, and then you hear something that activates it, and that's part of the puzzle. And that was actually pretty difficult for me anyways. I like to explore, I am the exploring type, but it's really easy to miss some of the things in Resident Evil 7, and I feel that doesn't hurt the game at all. I feel puzzles are just done in such a way that makes you be like, oh, okay, they're very satisfying. They're not too hard, but they're not too easy. It's right there, right in the middle. It makes the experience great. This game is fairly easy to run through, except when you're faced with a challenge such as a puzzle. Some other gameplay things I want to note: sometimes you'd feel kind of frustrated going into some of the rooms and realizing you don't have the right keys. A lot of times when you're playing the game for the first time through, you're gonna be asking yourself a lot, am I going in the right direction? There are little things telling you that you're going in the right directions, however it's not a lot. So please, when you're playing the game and you're walking through a room and you realize there's 5 doors there and you don't have a key for none of them, try your best not to feel discouraged. Usually the keys are close around. However, things like the scorpion key or other keys that represents animals, it's gonna feel very frustrating at first going through it. Collectibles in the game are actually pretty hard to find as well. You have the bobbleheads, you have antique coins, and you have files, and a lot of the game is collecting all these collectibles. Rooms, I would constantly search, but even at the end of the game, when I finished it and it showed how much stuff you got, I missed a lot. And that's crazy because I was pretty sure I looked through a lot of the places of the various buildings you get to go into, and it's crazy that I actually missed a lot. So I highly recommend that if you do get this game, to explore a ton. It's really easy to miss some of the things there. Let's talk about the gunplay for a little bit as well. You're gonna get some guns in the game, and for me anyways, it feels like the guns don't really do too much. Most of the times it feels like you're just pushing the enemy back. A lot of the times you feel like you're gonna be wasting your ammo. You don't know if you're shooting the right part of an enemy, or it just feels like the guns don't really do too much. After a while, I just stopped focusing on gunplay and I started focusing on getting more health. You're gonna need your weapon, I'm not saying you're not, but most of the time it feels like your weapon's not really doing too much, and that's how I feel anyways. Now, graphics, they're not the best, I have to admit that. Character models just seem a little off, and I'm playing standardly, I'm not playing with VR. The models seem off, the graphics, especially outside, they don't seem the best. However, after a while, these minor complaints are just they're not gonna bother you after a little bit. For me anyways, graphics never really broke or made a game in my opinion. However, in the beginning of the game, you're gonna notice some few janks here and there is the best way I can explain it. The graphics don't visually look the best, however, you're just gonna ignore it. You're gonna be so sucked into the gameplay that the graphics is gonna seem like it doesn't even matter. Now let's jump into the horror aspect of this game. I feel Resident Evil was the pioneer for horror games. A lot of horror games looked up to the Resident Evil series, and how does horror come into Resident Evil 7? How does horror influence this game? And horror is there. A lot of times, especially during those grueling boss fights, you're gonna feel scared. It's really freaky when you're walking around a corner and suddenly Jack is right there in front of you. This game is filled with horror. The bosses, especially the second boss, it really freaked me the hell out. Obviously, this game is made for VR. I feel VR, these experiences is going to amplify at least by 3%. It's amazing. I haven't been scared at a horror game for such a long time, and I'm gonna admit this: horror games don't scare me. Resident Evil 7 did something right. Something about Resident Evil 7 made horror amazing, and I feel like going in the future of Resident Evil games, whether they're first person or third person, I feel like horror is going to be the main focus. Horror in this game was just stupendous. I can't compliment this game enough for that horror feeling. Sometimes you're gonna feel so scared that you're just gonna start panicking in the game as you are in real life. And I want to ask you guys to stay calm during the gameplay. Think out the paths, because you might do stupid things like me and run right into a dead end, especially during the boss fights, because you're going to be picking up some things in the boss fights. I'm not going to go into detail of what things specifically, but you're going to be gathering some things and you cannot be panicking in those situations. Now let's talk about replayability. As someone like me, I play a game and I constantly going back in. However, if the game has nothing to really offer, the second playthrough feels like a lackluster experience. Now, Resident Evil 7's length is about a 7-hour to 9-hour game, which is an okay length. The length is completely fine in my opinion. However, going through it a second time, I'm sorry, but it didn't really add too much. The game is short now that I know everything to it. I can easily beat this game in about 5 or 6 hours, maybe even less than that if I actually tried. The second time around, the game feels pretty short. However, like I said, these collectibles that are super hard to find is what you're going to be going back in there for. All the collectibles, it's very weird. Now, even though I've beaten the game and everything like that, I'm still wondering, where the hell are those collectibles? It's very weird. So I'm gonna go back in the game to look for these collectibles. However, if you guys are speedrunners out there, this is gonna be the perfect game for you, because I feel the game can be beaten quickly if you know everything about it. So for my final impressions, the game needs to be in your library. The game is absolutely phenomenal. It delivers on all of its promises. The gameplay, if you like the demo and things like that, you are going to be in love with Resident Evil 7. I promise you. You need this game in your collection, especially if you're a Resident Evil fan and you like new ideas. You're going to love this game. I promise you. You need to add it to your horror collection. Now, should you get it at $65, $60 with tax, at least in my area anyways, I would say yes. I definitely think it's worth picking it up now. This is a story heavy game, so as other people play, there is a chance it might get spoiled for you. So I recommend you buy this game. This game, it's not perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect game. And this game, it doesn't break my top 3 Resident Evil games. Hell, it has a shot at breaking my top 5. However, I think it is a solid experience. It's something that I feel should belong in the Resident Evil series. A lot of conflict that people had with Resident Evil 7 is the fact that they don't feel like this game belongs in the Resident Evil universe. Me personally, I feel like it does after playing the game through. I wanted more. I did say this game is a 7 to 8 hour game. It turns to a 5 to 6 hour game if you know what you're doing. However, I feel like I want more after I beat the game. I was like, that's it? I want more. It was such a great ending, but I still want to play more of the game, and I feel this game was perfect. So for a score, gameplay, I have to give this game a 8 out of 10. For horror, it gets a solid 10 out of 10. For replayability, it gets a 7 out of 10, and overall I feel the game deserves a 9 out of 10. This game is phenomenal. Definitely pick it up. There are a few bad things here and there, but they're not too many. They're small gripes. But anyways, I'm gonna be out of here. Thank you guys for listening. Pick up Resident Evil 7. I promise you, you will not regret it. Deuces, guys.